Good morning, Turfs Up Radio. Wayneville's Profits Unlimited coming to you live from Louisville, Kentucky. Yes, indeedy. Oh, my goodness. We got a great morning going on. It was full sun this morning when I got to work, and now we're partly to mostly cloudy, but we got a good day going on. Good day going on. Everybody's out and about getting our groove on today. Absolutely. We got a extra truck out on the road today doing some fert and weed, trying to get rolling a little faster on that stuff. Got a little bit behind. Not We're not technically behind on our schedule and our goal mark, but we had 3 days last week that what was it? Yeah, 2.5 days basically that weren't good days. Last Wednesday's when our weird weather started with the too much wind to spray, and then Thursday and Friday was monsoon city, and so was Saturday, and Sunday kind of backed off. But yeah, we're going to talk a little bit about that today. Expecting Matt with BAM Weather to hop on here with me in about 10 minutes. So looking forward to that. We'll talk about that. But it is hump day. Can you guys believe it? Here we are, hump day already. April 9th, I think. Yeah, April 9th is what we're on already. Time flies when you're having fun. That's all I can say. So, yeah, hope everybody's week's going good. Our morning got started off pretty good around here. Absolutely, or great, realistically. So, looking forward to having a great show. Looking forward to being alive. I say that because they're, hey, we're beating some of them just looking down on grass. But yeah, so with that being said, I want to talk a little bit about your week and find out how your week's going. Hopefully everything's going good with you and your company this week. And I know I've had a couple guys reach out to me talking about the pain in the butt that it's been already with employees saying they want to work and not showing up. Got a gentleman that I've been talking to recently, Dwayne, down there in Atlanta, Georgia, who's having some issues a little bit and with employees showing up. And hey, hey, Dwayne, I'm not talking out of school on it, buddy. It's a common issue and common problem. So we come up with the answer to that, man, and we're gonna be zillionaires. We're gonna make Mark Cuban look like the little guy that carries the stuff around at parties. And not that there's anything wrong with that. I'm not minimizing that if any of you guys do that, but I'm trying to think of what that person's called. Like,
Only thing I can think of is like a waiter, but I know that's not what you're talking
yeah,
about.
yeah. So, but anyways, we come up with that. I did see something neat the other day, and maybe it's been out there a long time, but I've always said it'd be a great invention, and 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 that's trailer lights without requiring wire. And now they're out there. I saw one, and I'm sure they probably been out there, but I just didn't really look for them. But I always thought, man, it'd be because trailer lights are almost as challenging as employees. Not quite, but they can certainly be a pain in the butt, to say the least. Just God, you plug it in and they're working 1 second and not the next. So that's one thing I got pretty good at, Daniel. I ain't gonna lie about was full of my trailer lights. And you know me, that kind of stuff's normally not my forte, but uh, I just I got really good at figuring it out and making them work and figuring out what was wrong. And we finally, I tell you, a little trick we did, and I'm not suggesting anybody does this because I'm sure it's probably not the best thing in the world to do. I need to ask my buddy Timmy Hamilton about this, but we immediately we'd buy a new trailer, and did not do this with our new ones. But anytime we bought a new trailer up to these that we just recently, the three new ones we just got, uh, we would just cut the old wiring off, take an outside extension cord, and run wiring, use that extension cord wiring as the wiring harness, if you will, from the plug back to the lights, just for better insulation, and having it work. So, um, but anyways, we'll see. We'll see what's going on with. These seem to be acting pretty well. These these new trailers, but yeah, the frustration can be real. The frustration can be really real at times. So um, hopefully, you're not having trailer light and employee problems and customer problems. So, but uh, Tim, appreciate you listening, my friend. Glad you tuned in. Tim Brennan listening to us up there in Schenectady, New York. Absolutely. Absolutely. Seth, appreciate you listening, my friend, as well. Yeah. So today is a good day to be looking down on grass. I appreciate that text. You guys are right. And, with that being said, I'm just curious what you guys are into today. I know Tim Brennan up there in Schenectady. He's a dealer as well, and for SnowX equipment as well as other product lines. And he's just taken on a new line of robotic lawnmowers. Daniel, I don't know if I shared that with you yet or not, but
Yeah, that's interesting.
yeah, and he said things are going good. Maybe we'll get him on here one day to talk about it. He gave me a gentleman to reach out to, and Tim, I've still got his number right on my desk. I swear I do. I was just waiting, for this time of the year to reach out to him and get him on here. So, looking forward to getting him on and talking about the robotic mowers. And yeah, Tim brings up a good point too. He said he's getting a little worried about people canceling. Um, cutting service, cutting back, with
Yeah.
what's going on. So we'll see how that handles. We've had a little bit of that, but nothing percentage wise, not anything greater than normal up to this point. But yeah, that's something we certainly can talk a little bit about as well. We've got some historic flooding going on in our area, and just it's crazy. When I say our area, not just Louisville proper. This, the well, I'll tell you what we'll do. We'll wait for Matt to get on with us. Bam weather. Let him talk about it. He's going to be the expert authority on that. So, yeah, well, that's cool, Tim. Glad to hear that. Tim said he's doing two houses so far with Segway robotic mowers. So,
Interesting.
yeah. So, I guess, people complain. I remember when robotics got really, really rolling, in factories and
Yeah.
things like that, and everybody was complaining, where you're taking jobs away. Well, when you can't get people to come in and do the job, you got to go to the next solution. I mean, that's just the reality of it. And
Definitely think it's a balance to strike, though. I mean, there's I think there's a good middle ground to find
yes,
in that.
absolutely. So hang on to that thought. Hang on to that thought. Uh, oh my God, you guys hilarious. I love y'all's text. Y'all keep me rolling. Y'all keep it honest. We'll talk about that here in just a second. But hey, on a more serious note, I did want to give uh, I'm trying to think of the best way of saying this. There's no good way to tell you about somebody passing away. Jim Houston, some of you guys may be familiar with him. He's been an industry consultant and business coach for nearly 4 decades. He's been in the game a long time, like I have, and passed away last week. I just saw an article about that. So some of you guys may have used him as a business coach in the past, and may know of him, or maybe you don't know of him. And we were not great friends. Realistically, I knew him. I had met him actually up in Connecticut several years ago. We were both presenting in Connecticut, and I just got an opportunity to talk to him briefly there. But he was only 75, and I say only 75. I used to think when that was really old, but at 62, 75, I mean, I hope I'm still rolling. I mean, you know, but I don't know. So, but I did want to share that with you guys and, put that out there because I know a lot of you guys know of him or heard of him. And I didn't know if you had seen any of the articles out yet. But yeah, so the industry lost a great person, number one. And here's my buddy, Matt. We'll come back to Mr. Houston. Let's see. How you doing, Matt? Let me see. Let me get you hooked up here, buddy. All right. I
Can you hear
think
me?
yes, sir. You are good. How you doing, Matt?
I am doing fantastic. How about yourself?
Good. How's our friends at BAM Weather doing?
We're doing well. We got a lot of rain recently, not as much as you, but we're hanging in there. It's been a wild ride from the weather department
It,
recently. So
well, you guys been rolling out the hours. I know that too. So the other day when I saw you and Michael online, I was thinking, daggone, these guys will make good snow patrol guys. Y'all be good
yeah,
snowplow guys,
no kidding. I mean, it's the same deal with like farmers too. It's we work any time of the day and whatever it takes. It's just one of the perks of the job.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. Getting it
but we're
done.
happy to do it. Happy to keep people safe. And at the end of the day, I'm a weather nerd, so I love doing it anyway. So
Yeah. Yeah. Well, hey,
absolutely.
I appreciate all the input that we got from you guys and updates last week with all the craziness we had going on around here. I'll say that. My goodness. So
No kidding. How much rain did you get down in your neck of the woods?
somewhere around 8 inches, I believe, is what the official total was.
Yeah.
And little more, little less, based on somebody having their own rain gauge scattered throughout. But I know we got a lot of historic flooding going on in this part of the country for sure.
Yeah.
Frankfort,
Yeah.
Kentucky was crazy. I mean,
Oh my gosh.
and
Just south of you.
yeah,
Holy
and
smokes.
yeah.
Foot of rain plus in spots. I can't even imagine that.
I mean,
I mean,
is that like? Is that those what they call like once in 100 year things or 50 years or was it not that bad? And
yeah,
and why is it
that's
happening?
probably that was probably, once in a 50, 100 year type of event, for sure. Although I say that, and, it's reminiscent of something that happened in 2011, really, where I know in 2011 there was a prolonged rain event that brought in really similar areas a lot of rain. Why it happened? Well, there's a couple of reasons, and the biggest reason was a front just kind of stalled out in the area. It didn't really move. And those areas, the Ohio Valley, Western Kentucky, of course, obviously some parts of Arkansas and Southeast Missouri as well, where they just they got the worst of it. And it's because the front just didn't move. It was around for days, and you had multiple waves moving along that front. And each of these waves brought in tons and tons and tons and tons of rain. And just incredible. I assume you're probably still dealing with flooding issues to this point.
Oh yeah, I think I think the Ohio River was supposed to crest today. I know
Yes.
some of the tributaries feeding it have crested already, but I think they said the Ohio River was actually going to crest today, and it's as bad as it's been for a little while. I mean, knock on wood, I was very fortunate. I live in a higher elevation area. I'm in a subdivision, but my elevation plane's just up. And
Sure.
but I can't imagine. I mean, some of these homes here are up to the roof, literally.
Oh,
Here in
I can imagine. I'm just south of Indianapolis, and we and I say only got around 6 inches of rain, and my neighborhood for even the next 2 days, it was a maze getting out of my neighborhood because half the streets were flooded still, and I couldn't get past them. So I can't even imagine, folks around you and the heaviest rain areas. It's probably still, a lot of areas impassable, unfortunately.
Yeah,
But
it was crazy. Last Saturday, my daughter Katie and I and Alyssa, a friend of hers, we rode up to Frankfort actually. Not to be gawkers, there's a cigar shop up there that they they're going to Cleveland this weekend, and they were going to get some cigars to take up there, and it was crazy. We were up there Saturday in this facility, and then Sunday downtown Frankfort's flooded. The right exactly where we were at, less than 24 hours. They had 2 feet of water in there, so or
it's
more.
unbelievable,
So,
and
crazy.
that's not, and let alone the flooding, which is obviously in some
Yeah.
spots absolutely devastating and historical. You know, we had all these tornadoes and severe weather as well. I mean, holy smoke! It was definitely one of the more wild day stretches I can remember.
Question on that, you know, when it happens time, you know, like day after day, like that did for 3 or 4 days. I always thought, and I mean, I know you got a simple answer for this, but you know, I always thought that like when weather went through, it stabilized the atmosphere. Why? How could it keep regenerating severe day after day like that? How'd that keep happening?
That's a great point, and that's a great question. So oftentimes, when you're talking about stabilizing the atmosphere, so on and so forth, you're dealing with something, a pattern that's a little bit more progressive, right? Where there's nothing really to recharge the atmosphere. In this case, with that front didn't really move out of the area, and so if you were constantly south of that front, there was always lots of moisture, lots of instability. And what happened in this particular case is our jet stream was hyperactive, and we had these waves that continued to come in. And so you had wave number one come in, it exited, and it probably stabilized the atmosphere at least for a little bit. But then another wave approached the area, and that shifted the moisture and instability back north again. And so it was kind of a charge and discharge continually. Where in most instances, that's not the case. You get a wave that rolls through, stabilizes things for a good bit.
What does the rest of April look like?
Yeah, well, the good news, at least in terms of the rest of April, is I don't think it's as active. It will probably be cooler. It'll be colder. So I'm still concerned for some frost and some freeze, unfortunately.
Yeah, I saw that on your thing y'all put out yesterday that the cold's not over or something.
Yes, the cold's not over. Actually on the Clarity app, Wayne, and if you look in the map section, we have our last freeze estimate map there. And if you look at that, you can see a lot of areas from, let's call it from northern Nebraska to southern Pennsylvania. You know, we've got April 17th to the 23rd. And then obviously that delays the further north you go. So it probably will be a colder month. And I don't think it's going to be as active. At least, it's hard to get as active as we were, right?
Right.
But there will be shocks there. There's still a lot of storm systems we're eyeing in the future here as we look at things.
I saw where you guys were calling for a little snow up in northeast Indiana and Ohio potentially. Is that still on target? Or like my daughter's going to Cleveland Friday, and
mostly be good. I think there can be some snow Cleveland getting into tomorrow morning, but I think it'll be too warm. It's that tricky time of the year where there's snow in the forecast, but is it going to stick, right? And this is one of those cases where it's very borderline, but. Yeah, I'm watching this late this afternoon, in the evening, I'd say far northeastern Indiana towards like Angola, but then into Michigan in particular, areas like Grand Rapids, Lansing, even Detroit. The concern would be as we head into tonight, you get some banding of some snow that sets up. And so it's all going to be about, do the rates overcome those warmer ground temperatures?
I got you.
Because we're just time of the year where it's tough. I think there can be some slushy impact, especially into Michigan, heading into the evening, into the overnight, because I am concerned about those snowfall rates, especially like bridges, overpasses, grassy surfaces, but even other surfaces. You get an inch snowfall rate for 1-2 hours, and maybe the air temperature is 34 degrees, but once the snow, starts sticking for a time, now you got snow falling on top of snow, right? And that's just way different than obviously snow falling on top of warm ground. So watch for a little bit of slush. If any of your listeners are in some of those areas, again, especially I'd say Grand Rapids to Detroit, and you're in the snow removal industry, unfortunately, you'll need to be keeping an eye on things for some slushy. It'll be that wet, heavy type of snow, almost like raining snow.
I got that. Now, does that move east into like New York or in Pennsylvania, or you think it's...
It's kind of the wave itself does, but as far as the wintry weather. A lot of areas in New York probably avoid that, especially at the time. It kind of moves through New York getting into the afternoon. So we're going to just naturally have those warmer temperatures.
I see.
But I mean, my apologies. There's a few areas, I think, Syracuse East, kind of more upstate, and some of those higher elevation areas in upstate New York that probably have some snow. And I think even some snow can work in areas like Western Massachusetts into Connecticut as well, getting into overnight Thursday night into Friday. And that's the timing's the key here, especially this time of the year, because if you get into the overnight, into the early morning hours, obviously that's when we're the coolest, and that's going to be the best potential for
Right.
snow to mix in. Now, on the south side of the system, as we head into tomorrow, actually, we need to be on the lookout for the potential for some severe weather.
Now, is that what part? What are you talking about? Indianapolis, Louisville, Nashville, St. Louis? Where are you looking at for that?
Yeah, I think for you're definitely in it. I would say, especially far southern Illinois, far southern Indiana, perhaps far southwestern Ohio, but Kentucky for sure, southeastern Missouri for sure, Arkansas to, let's call it, northern Alabama in particular, getting into tomorrow evening. It looks to be primarily kind of a windy gust, hail type of threat, but there can be a few tornadoes tomorrow as well. For you, probably more wind gust than hail.
All right. So I just scooted my car back over that I leave in the garage. And so I need to get it back over so I can get what I normally drive in the garage then, you think? Or is it small hill?
I think, unfortunately, it'd probably be in your best interest. Luckily, it's tomorrow, right? And so we'll see how things trend, but you probably want to put it back in the garage.
All right.
Unfortunately.
Well, all right.
So,
well, I hear you. I guess the roofing companies are really looking for help from you guys too, aren't they?
Oh yeah. And a few of those are certainly clients and public adjusters across the board. Gosh, from severe weather, wind, flooding. I mean, these guys, I'm sure, are busy.
Yeah, absolutely.
But that's good for business, I suppose. So.
I know it was crazy enough weather with this flooding that they actually, I don't know if you know, we have something called Thunder over Louisville down here, kind of like a big fireworks kickoff for Derby. And
I've heard about that.
Yeah, that was supposed to be this weekend. Yeah, and they canceled it due to the flooding, because they issue of trying to get people along the riverfront, number one, but probably more important than that is they anchor the barges out in the river that they set the fireworks off on, they just said they just couldn't take that risk,
Sure.
So that's crazy. That's got like $126 million impact, they said, to the city. I mean, 'cause it's a big deal. It's a big deal. So,
and that's crazy. That's just one city. I haven't seen any totals. But I'm curious on what the financial impact will be from the system across the board.
Yeah.
I'm sure it probably will end up in the order of billions of dollars when all is said and done, which is, just wild.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. So, should my daughter take boots to Cleveland?
I think she's good. She's good. Fine. It'll be wet. It'll be rainy.
All right.
As long that snow is mainly a threat early Thursday morning, or I don't know.
Yeah, they're not leaving until tomorrow. I hear you. So they're going to be good. All right.
Yeah, they'll be fine. They'll be fine. Right.
Next week, short term next week for what's your forecast for the area? Not just mine, but we got listeners everywhere. So what do you think across the country, real quick, before you hop off?
Yeah. So like I said, there's just a lot of storm systems upcoming, but these will not be anywhere near the magnitude that we had kind of into the Midwest. There's a low moving across the northern plains. Probably will be a wet late into the week, into early next week, and maybe even a few folks near the international border in North Dakota, Minnesota might see some snow and some heavy snow at that. There's a little system that moves through getting into Monday as well, kind of into the Ohio Valley. Illinois, Indiana. Right now, I think the better threat's just north of you, but I could offer up some severe potential as well. Once again, and maybe a few locally, some heavier rain. And then Tuesday, front kind of settles to the south. And so that's mainly going to be in Oklahoma, the Tennessee type of deal heading into Tuesday. Some pesky rain chances midweek into the northeast U.S. And then need to watch out for yet another, perhaps a stronger system around April 17th and 19th. And that's going to be obviously towards the end of next week, but that may offer up once again some areas of heavy rain and potentially even some severe weather once again getting into the following weekend here. So it's about every 2 to 4 days we seem to have these systems roll through here. And so my apologies.
That's all right.
There's a lot of systems to track here. I do think April probably can end out a little bit drier here, not as active. So the deeper into April, getting into May, probably won't be as active across the board here, in my opinion. So for folks who need a break, that's fantastic news here. Right. And in fact, as we get into May, areas where it's probably going to be wetter, I'd say Michigan and to the northeast U.S. But concern as we get into May, things may get pretty dry, especially I'd say in the Central Plains and even Southeast U.S. here. So,
is there any truth to a lot of rain in the spring creates a dry summer? Or is that is that just folklore kind of stuff you hear?
I would say that's just folklore. In fact, I would even argue the opposite. The rains, any rains we get now will help alleviate a little bit drought conditions that can develop in the summer. And I think the opposite, areas that miss out on the rain into the spring, that usually can spell bad news for the dryness and the drought upcoming. And a lot of that, you get dry soil moisture, and then you work in the heat of the summer, that further dries things out. And then if the soil's already dry, now you can heat up the ground even more than versus if it was wet. And it kind of can snowball itself into dry, warm, hot type of conditions. And, I don't know if you've seen our summer outlook, Wayne, but
I have not looked yet.
It's pretty dry for folks out in the plains. We are concerned about that. A year that kind of comes into mind, although we're not predicting a 1-to-1 exact match, but 2012, very notorious in ag circles for drought conditions. And that year seems to be a pretty good pattern match to this year. So concerned about that. You and I, we're kind of on the line between dry and wet. There probably will be episodes where we get wetter and episodes where we get drier this summer. And then the further east you are, you're just going to have a better flow, atmospheric flow. So folks, Michigan to, let's call it Georgia, Florida, and east probably have some better shots to see above normal rain through summer here. So
the guys that are in the landscape and mowing business, if I'm hearing you right, and going east should have a pretty good season without a situation too bad in the summer, drying out and having to skip mows, right?
I would think so. Kind of what we're looking at now. Those folks will definitely be better off, but could be a rough one for folks into the plains this year.
Good deal.
Unfortunately. So,
all right, Matt. Well, hey, I appreciate you staying on a little extra with us today, and as always, appreciate everything you do to help us at Wayne's Lawn Service better organize our crews and our day with your all's weather information that we gain from you guys. So
awesome. I love to hear that. I love chatting with you, Wayne, and if folks want to try it, we're offering free trials now. So they can just go to the BAM website and try it out.
So check it out. BAMWX.com, get your free trial. And like I always say, the return on investment is certainly going to be maximized for you. There's not a doubt in my mind that, it's a big multiplier. I'm not going to put one on it, but I know it's a big multiplier for us on what the spend is versus what the return is. So if you want ROI on something that's going to be an excellent opportunity for you, check Matt and his whole team out at BAMWX.com. Take that free trial, and I'd be willing to say you won't change it up. Let me
Yeah,
say that. Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely urge people to. And then thanks for that, Wayne. I appreciate you.
Well, it's the truth, man. I mean, you all help us out quite a bit, and I think it's all good. But I just love the opportunity, the feature of being able to text you guys if we need some really specific information yesterday. I mean, right
Right.
now is what I mean. But when we need to make a decision, of hey, we sending crews out or not sending crews out, you guys are awesome with giving us solid advice on that. So
I love that, and that's what it's all about. It's if you're trying to make those business decisions on numbers and whatnot, you're just at the mercy of numbers. You're not really consulting anyone. You're just looking at numbers.
right.
And it may or may not be good. There's more context to the numbers, and so that's kind of what we specialize in. And I would love to help more of your listeners out. So
Good deal. All right, Matt. Well, thanks. Have a great day, and look forward to talking to you next week sometime.
likewise, Wayne, have a good one. Good luck out there.
All right, you too. That is the world famous Matt Griffin with BAMWX.com. Reach out to those guys. You will not be disappointed. With that being said, we're going to take a short break. Appreciate you guys joining me today. I wanted to talk a little bit today, and Aaron this morning had somebody on his show, lady on his show, but with talking about battery powered equipment. And I'm just curious if any of you guys listening to us have made the switch to some battery powered equipment, whether it's, your old 2-cycle stuff like blowers or trimmers or hedge trimmers, string trimmers, whatever it may be. Or even, some of your bigger equipment, your riding equipment. We had a tractor here actually that was we were holding for somebody from the GIE show. I call it the GIE show, Lordy, in October, but the Equip Expo actually, and it was 100% electric. So I mean that's certainly the wave of the future for us, guys. And just curious if any of you all have transitioned into using any of that. I know for us, I mean, we've tried quite a bit of it, and looking forward to some transition into that. Currently, 2-cycle side is where we're looking to make our changes initially and go from there. But we've had decent luck with. Actually, brought a few blowers this year to try to get a little bit of use of around here, a little bit. So, I don't know. That's where we're at with it. I think it's going to be a good change for our industry. I think it's going to be a good change for Wayne's Lawn Service. And one thing you got the hardest part of getting past is certainly when you look at the cost. But it goes back to if you understand cost per hour of operation and how to calculate cost on equipment, when you start eliminating fuel, maintenance, and repairs, the purchase cost is greater. But when you look at removing those other expenses is where it becomes a valuable asset for you. So just wanted to talk about that just briefly this morning. But my main thing I want to talk about today for a little while, or one of them, is customers, if you will. Daniel, this can be a pretty exciting topic. And how the squeaky wheel gets the grease kind of concept. But it's funny, and we were talking about it just today. We had a lady call yesterday. I think it was yesterday. Yeah, yesterday. And maybe a Monday. Not 100% sure. But anyways, called and said, hey, I was just wondering when y'all were going to be out to spray my yard. And this is just somebody new that Katie had actually put on as a new client last week. And on Tuesday and Wednesday, we had 30 to 40 mile an hour winds where we weren't spraying. And then Thursday, Friday, we had rain straight for 2 days. And so we weren't able to even get back out until Monday. And so my question's this. my question's this: when when the customer calls in and complains about something like that, or I'm using the word complaints, not really a complaint, I guess, right? Or is it, Daniel? What do you
I
think?
think it depends on each situation.
Depends on the situation, but basically saying, "Hey, where you at?" I really believe that if we'd have been out there Thursday morning and sprayed, and then we had 4 inches of rain, she'd have probably been saying, "Hey, you need to come back out and respray this." So I think it's perspective on how we look at it. How we look at it. Uh, let's see what we got here. Yay. Good deal, Mike. We'll talk about that in just a second. But the reality of it is we create what we call a fire list, basically. And that is, customers like that, and we always try to get new customers sprayed right away. Just so, hey, they come on, let's get them treated right away. And the reason we do that for several reasons. One is not to push our older customers back and make them less important, but somebody new coming on, we try to just get them serviced, let them know that, hey, okay, you signed up with us, we're going to get your first application down, because we know with our existing customer base, some of them will call, but most of them understand the fact that, hey, we're going to be there and we'll take care of them. So we try to take care of the new ones that we put on, just ASAP. And so they generally hit what we call our fire list, or I named it that a long, long time ago. It's, hey, people that before they become a problem, let's try to not to eliminate that, basically. So kind of like going slow to go fast, if you will. And we're going to talk a little bit about how that applies. But anyway, so we got out yesterday afternoon and sprayed this lady's yard for her, and got her sprayed. And it was funny. We also take care of a neighbor. Now, so the neighbor called, and she was really fun with it. She says, "Hey, I'm just checking to make sure I didn't get off y'all's route." Said my neighbor got sprayed, but my yard didn't get sprayed. And so Katie told her no. Said she's a new customer, and lady said, well, that's fine, because the neighbor wasn't up for their round two yet, timing wise. Even though logistically we'd have loved to have sprayed it, but it wasn't the right thing to do, because it only been a couple weeks since she had her first application. But the neighbor said this afterwards. She said, "Just so you know, you're never going to make my neighbor happy." So, what do you think, Daniel?
Probably not a great sign.
No, yeah, there's your sign, as Jeff Foxworthy would say, and that completely explains the phone call. In, saying where you at, kind of concept. So we'll see how it goes. Daniel, was it you or Katie joking said we ought to start getting?
Letters of recommendation.
Yeah,
from
was that you
neighbors.
or Katie?
Me?
Yeah. tell our listeners that they might get a kick out of that.
Yeah, just that as part of our lead process. Taking tell each of your neighbors to send us a letter of recommendation and to make sure you're not a lunatic. But then who knows? The neighbor could be a lunatic, and we're just taking their word for it. So
Yeah,
maybe they have a little beef going on, or a little quarrel going on, and
yeah, it could be like Mr. Walt. Yeah, Katie,
yeah.
same. I mean, you thought the same thing, Katie. Like, yeah, Mr.
Maybe
Walt's
individually they're not hard to work with, but together, when they come together, they turn into the worst nightmare.
Oh, yeah, true that. But yeah, I thought it was funny when Katie said, "Oh my God," she just said, "We're never going to make her happy." So I don't know. We'll keep you guys posted. We'll keep you updated on how many days the new customer gives us before she calls and says, "My weeds aren't dead."
Yeah.
You know,
We're going to start a new tariff here. It's the crazy tariff.
like, oh my God, yeah. That's
You get one free call in.
after that. It's
After that, you get next year's price goes up, or next app price goes up.
oh shoot. Oh, Mike sent us a text. He said he bought a battery Pushmore last week for some commercial islands that they do, and sent us a picture of it. Hate that it's a Pushmore, but the contract was a good one. So, hey, good deal. And sounds like it. Looks like it. Look, first of all, it looks like a nice mower. Looks like it'd be all right. Secured on the trailer mic. That a boy. He sent us a picture of it on his trailer, Daniel. So that's good. But yeah, let us know how it works out. I know that one that Crest bought by here for us. That Pushmore seemed pretty solid that day.
Yeah.
And I think that's the thing. Battery powered equipment's getting better and better all the time. And Crest has certainly got their charging system figured out. I'm not saying nobody else does. I'm not saying that everybody else is wrong and Crest is right, but they've certainly got they've got the history. That's what they've got.
The power and the power too seems like you mentioned.
Yeah.
It's the battery, but it's also that I don't know if this is the right word, but the output of the equipment seems pretty good. I
Yeah.
don't know what I don't know what it would be compared to gas powered, but it's certainly not what you would traditionally think of as like, oh, this is just your grandma's battery powered,
Right.
whatever.
Inferior power and production kind of concept. Yeah. And I know Crest; those guys have got it figured out pretty well. So,
And I think, like you said, you just have to be open minded to it. Doesn't mean you have to change, but too many times, either I can't remember if it was last year or the year before, we were walking out at the Equip Expo, and I can't remember why, but we were asking people, if they've used any battery powered equipment or whatever, and a lot of people were just not open at all to the idea of even trying it or learning about it. Even like they were so stuck in the ways of no, it has no power or whatever their excuse was, that you can tell they hadn't even really educated themselves on it. They just been spouting out what Facebook had been saying.
right. And I think that's something we got to be really aware of as contractors too, is not making a judgment based on social media's output on what a product will or won't do. I mean, I know you say, well, where else am I going to get the information? Because the manufacturer is going to tell me it's the best thing since sliced bread. And I mean, I get that too. But what I also know is there's a lot of information that comes through social media. And actually, we got a video on that. Didn't we just do that video?
Yeah, it's not going to be up for a minute.
Yeah.
But yeah,
But,
we just recorded a video.
Yeah, we just recorded a video
talking about some of the bad
on that.
things that are out there, some of the bad information or whatever.
Yeah, that. But I do. I think battery is going to be the wave of the future for us. And I was reading an article the other day of gentlemen that actually had 21 crews that just switched over, and I can't remember where they were from. It doesn't matter, but I could pull the articles. One of the trade magazines brought up. So, but he was talking about they had just switched over, on theirs. So, yes, that was one of our crew managers buzzing in there for us. So give him a call and see what he's into. But yeah, I think battery powered equipment is certainly a good thing to consider for most all of us. So with that being said, let's take a short break here and we'll be right back with more Profit Time here on Turfs Up Radio, your industry, your station.
Get ready to abandon gas with Crest Commercial. With insane power and extreme longevity, the era of batteries trailing behind gas engines is over. With the Crest revolutionary 8-minute cyber system, Crest Commercial landscape tools provide the same power and performance as their gas-powered counterparts, as much as a 2-stroke engine. Plus, the Crest 60-volt CyberPack batteries charge in 8 minutes or less. Professional landscapers can finally make the switch to battery without sacrificing performance, power, or runtime. Crest, it's the only choice to replace gas. For more information or to find a dealer near you, visit Cress.com. Landscapers, tired of old school whiteboards, sticky notes, and spreadsheets? Crew Control from Aspire delivers all-in-one software that ensures your hard work pays off. Craft winning proposals, simplify scheduling, complete routes efficiently, and get paid fast. Powerful mobile features keep your team connected, and insightful reporting gives you the facts. Don't deal with the frustration. Get your free 14-day trial today at crewcontrol.com. That's crewcontrol.com.
Hi, we're Big and Red.
And I'm Cowboy Troy.
And you're listening to Turfs Up Radio, your industry, your station. Bring it up.
Crank it up. Yes, indeedy. Bidding season is here. Mike, you brought it up. Let's talk about it a little bit. Mike got him a new battery operator push more to do some islands in a facility. So makes really good sense. And, you know, when you talk about bidding jobs, you know, it's that time of the year when everybody's phone's blowing up and ringing off the hook. And, you know, they start the conversation off with, you know, hey, my favorite one is, how much do you charge to cut an acre? And honest to God, I want you to respond this way next time somebody asks you that. How much do you charge to cut an acre? Or how much do you charge to cut a residential lawn? I got a small lawn. How many times don't you hear that? I got a small lawn. Well, let me ask you, if you're going to list your house for sale, would you list it as a house for sale with a small lawn? Well, probably not. Then they kind of laugh about it. But that can be part of the fun conversation with somebody. But realistically, you know, when they do say, what do you charge to cut an acre? I, honest to God, have told people, and I'm sure I'll do it again this year because it's just fun, jokingly say, as much as we can get. And I think what you see is somebody can appreciate, and if they don't, they can hang up and be mad at you. That's okay too. But the reality of it is, you know, hey, what do you charge to cut an acre? You know, that's like calling up a roofing company and say, what do you charge to put a roof on my house? Or what do you charge a painter? What do you charge to paint my house? Well, I don't know. There's variables that get involved, you know, and that's why I like to say, you know, when they say I got a small yard, well, is it really a small yard? Would you list it that way? That's one comeback. That's fun. And I don't mean to do it sarcastically. Do it in a fun way and smile and you'll get by with it. Or say as much as we can get, you know, and they'll say, well, all right, fair enough. But what do y'all charge to do it? Well, we need to take a look at the property, or we need to look at it on Google Earth, or, you know, some type of software that you may be using, because an acre is not an acre. You know, is that acre wide open, or is that lawn wide open? Or are there islands involved? Like Mike was talking about, hey, man, we bought a Pushmore to do these islands. So maybe I've got 15 islands going down through this subdivision that we're doing, or this HOA, that total an acre, but that acre is going to be a more expensive acre to cut than a wide open acre with no obstacles that I can use a 61-inch lawnmower on at 6 miles an hour, 5 miles an hour, whatever speed you want to mow at. So, you know, there's variables involved. And so before you start giving generic pricing or coming up with minimums, have you thought about the variables involved on the job, you know, such as what's the contour of the ground you're mowing? You know, because best case scenario, and I know a lot of you guys maybe are not bidding your jobs this way, but you need to think about it, is what's the efficiency factor on the job that you're mowing? In other words, the best it's generally going to get is about 85%, to be realistic. Now, some guys over anticipate or over exaggerate how good they are on a piece of equipment, you know, that, oh man, there's no way I'm losing 15% efficiency on the property. Well, absolutely, you can be. I mean, there's properties that may be efficiency factored all the way down to 60%, based on curbs and islands and contour. Are we cutting a hill? Are we cutting, what type of slope are we cutting? So those are some variables. Do we have to pick up trash on a job? Visualize a job that you've got that's on a maybe not the busiest street in the world, but a main thoroughfare, and the time that it's going to require to pick up trash. So it's not that the efficiency of the mow is going to be reduced in all cases, but the efficiency to complete the job is going to be reduced based on, you say, well, what's the curbs got to do with it? Well, I mean, are we dealing with a 4-inch curb? Are we dealing with a 6-inch curb? Are we dealing with subdivision curbs where they're more I'm trying to think, concave? Would that be it, Daniel? Like your all's curbs in your neighborhood. They're not a straight up and down flat face curb. It's more of a concave that you can go up and over easier. You can blow it easier. So all those things are variables that need to be taken into consideration on the job. What about irrigation? Are you asking or looking for irrigation when you bid a property? Because again, if it's irrigated, what's that going to tell you? Well, it's going to tell me a few things. I mean, it could be numerous things, but number one, if I've got an irrigated property, then that tells me, number one, they're probably on a fertilization and weed control program. And a lot of times we can tell by looking. And if they're not, they could be, if that's a service that you offer, and maybe that's a suggestive selling opportunity. But throwing that out the window, if it's an operational irrigation system, and that's a question you need to ask, then that means that's going to be consistent mowing throughout the summer for you as well. You're not going to have to worry about, well, it's going to get dry and things are going to slow down. I'm going to have to skip a week or go to a 10-day cycle, or so that's going to lead, to other things that you're going to do to bid the job that we'll talk about here in just a second. So looking to see if they've got irrigation, push more work. Is that going to be required? To Mike's point, he went out and bought a push more for this job. And I'm not saying that's a bad decision. It was an absolutely great decision that he made to go, hey, what can we do to increase efficiency on this job? And sometimes it's going smaller and not bigger. I have a hard time getting that across sometimes to contractors when we're talking about that. And Daniel, that would be a really good thing for the Profit Circle to talk about. Just a quick little video on bigger's not better. And that's the reality of it. People want to, always throw a 52 or a 61 or whatever it is on a property, when the reality of it is, hey, maybe a smaller piece of equipment will actually do a better quality job and not take much more time to do it. It kind of like, here's a picture to put in your mind. Let's look at some HOAs sometimes. Sometimes you get into HOAs or just residential lawns where they've got some slope built into them up around, the buildings. Okay. I'm not talking about big hills, but just some slope where, you can't efficiently run a 61-inch mower or 72-inch mower or whatever it is that you're trying to use on it because of the contour of the ground. So going to a 36 or a 48-inch mower, although it's a smaller piece of equipment, the quality of the cut is going to be better and the customer's going to be happier. And I'm not saying to make a customer happy to use a smaller mower, but use a smaller mower if a smaller mower needs to be utilized is my point. And those are all things that affect the price of the job. Special angle cuts. I know a lot of you guys are all about the stripes, right? I mean, look at my stripes. And I'm not going off on that tangent, Daniel. I was just about ready to go off on that tangent, but I'm not. But if you're going to put stripes on a yard and you're going to do that special angle cut, everybody likes it, right? But what I mean by the special angle cut is a diagonal cut. All right. And I'm not saying don't do diagonal cuts. We do diagonal cuts. But here's the real question. Have you calculated the diagonal cut into the cost of doing the job? Let's say every other week you do a diagonal cut. Well, that means in a market like ours, let's say you got 35 mows. Let's make it easy. Okay. Well, 17 of those services that you provide are going to take you a longer time frame to mow them, because on a diagonal cut, it's a shorter strip, right? It's a shorter run. Just visualize it in your mind. Visualize a rectangle in your mind, if you would. If I'm mowing long straight strips one week, but the next week I'm going on a diagonal cut across it, I'm taking something from maybe, I give you a quick example of like a funeral home we do here. It's about 17 passes, okay, with a 60-inch mower, 17, 18 passes with a 61-inch mower to get it done. But if I do it on a diagonal cut, think of how many more turns I've got involved. You say, well, Wayne, it's only, and remember what I talk about. Whenever you say it's only, you're justifying in your mind why it's okay to do something for less money. Well, it's only a few more turns. It's only 3 minutes. It's only 4 minutes. Well, instead of doing long straight strips, I want to cut it diagonally, but instead of having 17 turns, I'm going to have, 32 turns because of the short angle cut. Well, 32 turns times 2.6 seconds a turn. I'm not telling you got to do this math, although it would be beneficial. But what you do need to understand is the extra turns are extra time, and extra time is extra cost. And just because it may only be 3 or 4 minutes a week or every other week, let's say you're running a 3-person crew, three people on the job for 10 extra minutes, right? For 18 cuts a year, let's say, that's 180 minutes, which is 3 hours. If your labor rate is $100 an hour, let's just make a number up. That's $300 more it's costing you to do the special angle cut. So are you just eating it? Most times we are, because we're not calculating that into the efficiency factor of doing the job. So take into account special angle cuts. That's the main thing I want you to take away from my show today, are the variables that are involved in special angle cuts. And not only the time that it takes different. I just did a quick time comparison. But what is happening during that additional labor time is you have more equipment or machine run time. So that means fuel maintenance and repairs are going up because you're putting more hours on the equipment. You're not getting any more turf serviced. Still the same amount of turf, whether you mow it on a short angle cut or a long straight strip. So if you're not calculating for those special angle cuts that you're making, be sure to put that into your bidding process and reduce that efficiency factor on the job so you're bidding the job properly. Just that simple. It's not that you're going to charge the customer, I'm going to make a number up, $75 this week and $93 the next week, but I'm going to take my average total time on that property and bid the job accordingly. So if you haven't taken that into consideration, or you say, well, subconsciously I do it better than subconsciously. I don't have a big picture, Daniel, and tell me your opinion on this. You logically think things out. If I'm out of my lane, help me get back in there. But I don't have a big picture of Skag or John Deere or Ferris or Exmark or Echo or any of these equipment manufacturers, Cress. You know, I don't have any of that. I don't have a big picture of them saying, well, I think it's costing us this.
Probably not.
Probably not. I mean, it may come up occasionally, but then once they get that thought in their mind, I think that's when they go to I know and figure it out. And that's what I want you guys to do is think about the variables involved in jobs. And we're going to elaborate a little bit more on this, on my Friday show. But I think the reality of it is too many times, guys say, well, what do you charge? A million, you can ask a million contractors. Let's just take it, 100 contractors. And you say, hey, man, what's your minimum? Or what do you charge to cut an acre? And most of them are going to give you a number. When the answer should be, what are the variables within that acre? Or what are the variables within that yard? Then I can give you a price. But until you really have a good handle on bidding jobs, you don't ask yourself questions like that. You just say, well, okay, it's going to be $40 or $50 or $100 or $150 a cut or whatever it is. You're throwing the dart out there. And I just ask you guys to stop throwing darts, start being more precise in how you're bidding your jobs, and understand that there's a lot of variables involved when it comes to what's it cost to cut an acre or what's it cost to mow a yard or what's it cost to spray a yard. Same variables get involved in spraying. Am I riding a wide open area or am I riding around flower beds and gardens and up and down curbs? So contour ground, curbs, trash, landscape beds, quality of the turf, irrigation, push more work, special angle cuts. God, what else we got? Clients' expectations, which we don't have time to get into. But we are going to get into it Friday because I want to talk a little bit more about it. But that's good enough to think about today. Think about those things. Variables involved in the bidding. Variables involved in the bidding process. And do you take the variables not just subconsciously in mind, but do you take those realistically in mind? Because you're going to kill yourself profitability wise and not always too low. You could be bidding too high, because you don't have a methodology in place and you're sitting there figuring I got this much mow time, this much trim time. Absolutely break it down that way. Don't just look at a job and throw a dart and come up with a number. Now, on a residential lawn that you're doing, hey, you got a really great handle on what it's going to be. But when you get into doing something that is an acre or 2 acres or 5 acres or 20 acres, whatever it is, or multiple buildings involved that you're servicing, you need a better handle on it. And if you don't have a better handle on it, let us help you get a better handle on it. It's not hard. You just need to know what you need to think about. And too many times we just don't know what we don't know. We got an estimating guide that's awesome in helping you understand variables and how to adjust efficiency factors based on those variables to come up with a realistic price that is both accurate, professional, and profitable. And remember, profit is not the dirty word. We'll see you Friday.